So we'll know how that was quite controversial. And the circumstances with which he left was also controversial. And then we move on a little further, and many may have forgotten, chairman of the commission at the time, Ephraim Akpata. Remember, we're talking about recent history. We're not going before independence, where you even had the FEDECO after independence. You had all of those after 1983, and then this is recent history now. So after him, we had the chairman, Abel Gobadia, from May 2000 to June 2005. And the circumstances under which he left also raised a lot of controversy. Not just him. After him, remember Professor Morisiwu? He came forth, and then the elections held under him, and of course many can relate with what happens with his. And now, in 2015, the chairman of the commission is also under the spotlight. Arguments about his stay, who should conduct the elections, and all of those. So that continues to generate more controversies. But we'll also focus on that here today. Then the other matter, which is also generating a lot of controversy just ahead of the March 28th and February, I beg your pardon, March 28th and the April 11 rescheduled election dates, is the card reader. Well, many have thought that that was history, and so we'll go ahead, especially after the chairman of the commission appeared in the Senate and explained to everyone, senators, which many Nigerians saw, how it was going to function. Not everyone was convinced about that, but part of what he said was that, look, the card readers do not violate the Constitution. The card readers improve the integrity of the electoral process, and they will avert impersonation and voting by proxy. He went ahead and said so many others. Remember, many want free, fair, and credible elections. And so the chairman, the commission, coming up with this technology, thought that, hey, who knows? Let's go ahead and have these elections. But there are many who are also speaking up about this. It will amaze you. Some are planning to go to court to stop the use of card readers. But of course, everyone cannot be on the same page. So we'll talk about that in the course of the program in here today. Well, ever since Alhaji Lai Mohammed has joined us, he's the National Publicity Secretary of the APC. Good evening, and thank you for coming on again today.
Good evening, Chairman.
Well, this matter about the elections, much as lots of people thought that by now we should all be maybe on the same page preparing for the elections, but the argument is still out there about the position of the chairman of INEC. Your party speaks up strongly about this, almost maintaining the same line. But you have other parties. Recently, we had about 15 political parties, we understand, who say, look, we don't want the use of card readers. Let's start with the position of the chairman of INEC. Your party is concerned about plans to remove him from position before the elections.
I don't think it's only my party that is concerned. I think many of us are concerned that removing the chairman of the Electoral Commission on the eve of election does not add to the credibility of that election. Two, against the background of the recent postponement, I think many Nigerians feel like us that bringing a new, helmsman might only further, delay the elections. Supposing he gets there and says, well, what I've met on ground is not adequate. I don't think there's no preparation for elections. And of course, nobody has come out to tell us precisely why Jega should be removed. We didn't appoint him. He was appointed by this government. And until recently, he was the poster boy of this same government. They praised him to high heavens on every election he had conducted, including the one that brought in the president. So we want to know exactly why they want to remove him now.
Okay. Just give us a moment. We'll come back on this, as well as get the views of Mr. Odenta. But remember, we did talk about the number of registered voters in Lagos, how they differ between the figures released by INEC as at February 17th, and then the one released as at March the 3rd. Wakaide Idowu joins us. He's the Chief Press Secretary to the Chairman of INEC. Good evening, and thank you for joining us today, Mr. Idowu. Could you explain to us how this figure is? Because if it were the total number of those who have collected their permanent voter cards, it will change. But what we see now is, rather than the figure staying steady, it's reducing. How come?
Thank you, Chairman, for that question. Now, let me stress what you said earlier on, that the number of registered voters have not changed. In the register that we certified on January 13, the number of registered voters is 68,833,476. And in that register, the number of voters in Lagos is 5,822,207. Now, the other cases that he refers to, INEC was the first to detect that there was an issue with the computation that was done with the Excel sheet. We have realized the figure. We detected that the figure of Lagos was not corresponding with what we have on the certified register. That is why the commission had to reharmonize the figure with people on the ground in Lagos. And that was how we reverted back to 5,822,207. So this is something that INEC itself detected. It's amazing that some people will want to make issue of it now, but really, honestly, it's purely an occasional thing.
Okay, so the official figure of the total number of registered voters in Lagos remains or is 5,822,207. Is that correct?
Correct.
What about the case in Zamfara? Has that been sorted too? Because there were comments about those figures too, which was released as at February 17th and 23rd as well.
Yeah, you see, the figure of Zamfara actually are spread all the back figure at around more than 2 weeks data with me. The figure we have quoted that Zamfara has is 1,495,717, and that is what we have in the 35 register.
All right. Okay. So having clarified that, subsequent figures, this is what everyone should rely on, and there's no cause for concern here.
Thank you, Chamberlain.
All right, thank you, Kaidido, Chief Press Secretary to the Chairman of INEC. Well, we also did say that Udenta joins us from our studios in Abuja. Let's get across to him and find out what his view is, because many have spoken of. In fact, your party, Mr. Udenta, did speak about the position of the Chairman of INEC. Why does your party want him out?
I can't recall my brother. My party, the PDP has called for the removal of Jega as the chairman of INEC. That is actually framing the question in a very wrong perspective and direction. The critical thing for you to understand is that for the first time in the history of Nigeria, you have a president under whose watch INEC is not truly independent. It didn't happen under Fedeko. It didn't happen under NECON. It didn't happen under NEC. That's Babangida. It happened in 1999, most people believed, 2003-07. But since Jonathan took over, INEC is now truly independent, which means even the ruling party is having some grave, about certain procedural matters and operational matters. That is a kudos for the president. And that is far different from saying that anybody wants Jega to go. Jega is a matter of going and not going institutional. The president appointed Jega, or at least recommended him to the Senate, but confirmed him, then the director appointed him. If he's to leave, there are certain constitutional procedures, laid down rules and laws, a regulation that will guide his departure. And the way you went on with the other analysis about the other chairmen, if you look at it, Apata left after his first tenure, Gobadia one time, 5 years, Iwu one time. Apparently no NEC chairman has ever had a second time around. So Jega was appointed in 2010. So sometime, I'm sure in June 2015, his tenure will be appointed or he may not be reappointed. That is actually not the issue on ground. The issue is not about Jega as a person. It's about INEC as an institution. This child with at this very, very crucial stage in our national and democratic development.
All right, let me ask this.
The issue of card reader, for example,
just hang on. Before you get to the card readers, correct me if I'm wrong, your party